So before we start, I have a question on the intro / tagline because I feel it's not exactly representative. So I don't know if you guys have any suggestions for like podcast about blah 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 blah. Like
we talk about whatever random thing we thought was cool this week. Hope you do too.
Basically,
we chew up the stuff we like and digest it for you.
Not digest.
No,
that's so bad.
No.
All right, now that that's out of the way, something better.
We're all mama birds, and we're regurgitating information into your.
It's not inaccurate,
ears.
but yeah, no. I'm gonna say no.
We eat the jargon for you so you can understand.
Oh, God.
We're just a wolf
Terrible.
pack here.
Welcome to We Might Be Nerds, a podcast about everything from entertainment and technology to science and history. I'm your host, Dylan Critchfield.
I'm Kyle Montgomery.
I'm Sarah Critchfield.
And I'm Jacob Montgomery.
For the first time in probably a while, we've all kind of come together and decided on a singular topic? Question mark?
What are we doing?
Kind of, yeah, it's
What
it's
is the
weird.
meaning of life?
I'm not sure anymore. But kind of spawned by I don't know, how would you describe it? Jake, you're the one who kind of brought this up earlier in the week as we were discussing what to do. It was kind of brought on by a Goosebumps game we played as a kid. So I'll let you take it from here and just kind of explain how this started out and what are we talking about today?
Okay, so we were talking about this Goosebumps game that was kind of a throwaway reference on a different podcast I listened to called Jordan Jesse Go. Where this one guy was just like, hey, did you know that Jeff Goldblum was in a PC game that was Goosebumps themed after he was in Jurassic Park? And I was like, wait, PC game, Goosebumps. That's something I've actually played before. The game's called R.L. Stine Goosebumps Escape from Horrorland.
Oh
Horrorland.
Yes.
It could sound bad.
Yeah, the second one was good, yeah.
Yeah, the second one was good.
It all stays in.
It all stays in.
We'll edit that out.
That's what
No,
she
we won't.
We'll double it.
Don't tell me how to edit.
Yeah, I'll get that. Doesn't edit anything. But yeah, so... Do you guys remember, like, what year? Because I know myself, Kyle, Dylan, we all played this. I think it's a 2 CD game.
Yeah, it's a 2 CD Windows PC CD-ROM game that I think it was 98 or 99 we got it, because it was right after my family got our first Windows computer. We got it from our cousin upstate, burnt copies of the first disc, never the second disc. So we would get to the point where it's like, insert disc 2, and we just didn't have it. But that said, it's a adventure game. It's an old school adventure game. So it's also full motion video. So you can turn and look around these environments and kind of I Spy, click on things, put things in a bag to use in other places, and kind of explore this haunted, horror-themed park. I believe the whole synopsis is, there was a book, obviously, R.L. Stine's Horrorland.
Mm-hmm.
What was the actual title of the book?
I
think it was just A Day in Horrorland. I will check up on that in a minute. But the premise of this game is it's kind of a direct sequel. The tickets start glowing. This teenage gal, her brother and friend get sucked back into the theme park, and then apparently the unnamed character you play gets sucked into the other ticket as well. And you have to go and find these two kids and try to escape the theme park. That's the thing. But it's such a bizarre game looking back at it, though.
Yeah, and I just looked up the book's called One Day at Horrorland.
Gotcha.
I really need to pronounce that right.
Yeah. Now, I read the book as a kid, so that's why I had a lot of interest in that game. Because, Jake, you and I were the ones who, like, played it the most. But the reason we kind of thought this was interesting to bring up as a topic is because this game was developed by DreamWorks Interactive, which was spawned off of the recently founded DreamWorks Animation Studios. So DreamWorks was founded in '94 by Steven Spielberg, former Disney exec Jeffrey Katzenberg, and music executive David Geffen. So that all came to be in '94. Spielberg recruited a bunch of folks from Amblimation Studio. So the studio who did Balto. After Balto was released, a lot of animators came over to what was then DreamWorks SKG, named for the three founders, Spielberg, Katzenberg, and Geffen. And they started all sorts of like little spin-off companies. DreamWorks Interactive specifically was a joint venture with Microsoft. And Goosebumps Escape from Horrorland was their first kind of modest success in '97 with by '97, I should say, with 170,000 sales.
It's not a small amount. I mean, compared to some other things, that could really be considered small, but I mean, this was a new company doing a new thing. I mean, that's not bad.
Well, not to mention the home PC install base wasn't nearly what it is today in '97. I mean,
it wasn't nearly as popular.
No, the World Wide Web was in its infancy.
Yeah,
which
the
was
percentage of homes that had PCs, I would say, is not nearly what it is today.
No, it was special. Like, you would go to someone's house and it's like, oh, they have a computer. That was a point of interest. If you had a computer, typically we said, oh, they're over in the computer room.
Right.
That was a thing in that time.
Or the den.
But this game is interesting for a number of reasons. Not the least of which is, Jeff Goldblum appearing as Dracula inside the game. Fresh off of Jurassic Park, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yeah, 93 was Jurassic Park, yeah. So then, I mean, they're working on this, obviously, because it came out in 1996, so probably 95 is when he did this part. The huge Jurassic Park, and then the second one, Jurassic Park 2 Lost World, came out in 97. So between those two, Steven Spielberg and Jeff Goldblum both worked on this. Not that Steven Spielberg had a lot to do with the game, but he did help find DreamWorks Interactive, and he was apparently on the set when they were doing the live action filming, and they said it was
really?
Like a 25-day shoot. Yeah, and he did come on set as well as Katzenberg.
Wow.
Yeah, because it was like I said, like you said, it just came. They started the business in '94, and this is not like their first project, but it was one of the first big
earlier
projects, right?
Yeah, the first ones that was really successful. Yeah, and there are a couple of other major names as far as actors and voice actors in this game. Eric Lloyd, who played Charlie Calvin, the kid in the Santa Claus trilogy, is one of the protagonist boys who gets kidnapped, basically.
Buy these magic tickets. I guess we should have said spoilers if you want to play this game.
Yeah, you're a little late to it. I mean,
statute of limitations up on that, I think.
Yeah,
this is now a 25-year-old game.
Right.
If you have not played this, get with it.
or just look it up on YouTube.
Oh yeah,
or watch us. Apparently, we're gonna stream it.
Yes,
please.
Sometime over the next week. I have set up the game in a virtual machine. I've found it on an abandonware site, in full disclosure. But I've got a virtual machine set up to play this game, and I think we're going to try to get everybody on stream to kind of play through the game and actually take a look at it. But, the production quality isn't bad. The only things that really age it are, the video compression and the low resolution pixelation in the video. Other than that, the production quality is pretty high, especially when you consider the budget they were working on and the technology at the time. Just real quick before we stray too much further off the track, there were two notable voice actors in the game that I saw as I was flipping through the cast. JP, I believe it's Mano, Manous, who was the voice of Scrappy Doo in the Scooby-Doo series. And then Jeff Bennett, who was the voice of Petrie in Land Before Time, the voice of Johnny Bravo in the series of the same name, and Dexter's father in Dexter's Laboratory, actually voiced the Pumpkins.
Is this the same Jeff Bennett in, like, the Tinkerbell movies?
I believe so, yes.
Neat.
Oh, that would make sense. Yeah.
Yeah. Full disclosure, I'm 2 to 3 years younger than Dylan and Jake.
Yeah.
So I didn't really have much of a grasp on this game, nor did I really try to play this game on my own. I was just a little on the young side. But I can easily say that those pumpkins were the most memorable part of it. Those voices are, well, those really stuck with me because they're like, it was a certain cadence that when you were trying to solve this puzzle using those pumpkins, I mean, and all of us walk away remembering these pumpkins is saying the scarecrow walks at midnight.
But the cadence and the depth of the voices and just the voices are kind of funny in a way because it's more like the scarecrow walks at midnight.
Yeah, it's like,
oh yeah, the
early
scarecrow
Microsoft
walks
Sam
at midnight.
Yeah, it is very Microsoft Sam-ish.
Yeah, and I'm sure like the game had to load in between each clip before it played it, so it kind of like it's.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, and it runs entirely off the CD. Because I was messing around with it in a virtual machine, and it installs a single executable into program files on the disk. That's all it puts there.
Wow.
Everything loads directly off the disk, and, for me in a VM in 2021, it loads like nothing, because I'm doing everything digitally off a solid-state disk. But when you consider, like, loading off of an actual spinning disk drive in, the late 90s, early 2000s,
yeah.
Like, I noticed like the voice clips during that particular section because you click the pumpkins one in a row and it'll say, the first one you clicked, then the second one, because you have to string this phrase together. It didn't repeat the selections that quickly when we were young. Like,
No.
It's so fast.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm gonna actually, for the stream, I'm gonna massively decrease the processing speed available to that virtual machine. But
so where can our listeners watch this stream when it happens?
it's not fully set up yet, but I will plug that at the end of the episode.
And it'll be in the show notes.
Oh, show notes for sure.
Yeah.
But yeah, like DreamWorks, they had a couple other smaller ventures split off from the main animation group, correct? There was a music studio as well.
Yeah.
That I'm imagining was kind of Geffen's baby.
Yeah, Kyle, you looked into that, right?
Yeah, I'd taken a little bit of a dive into that. It's not something that really seemed to have lasted super long, but it was about a good 10 years of a run for DreamWorks Records. David Geffen had sold his record label, Geffen Records, a good number of years prior to the formation of DreamWorks. He sold that and kind of really wanted to look for the next thing he could really do. Mm-hmm. And that's whenever he got interested in forming DreamWorks with Spielberg and Katzenberg. And so by early 1996, he was starting to garner some new artists to join the record label and put out some actually somewhat noticeable notable records. His first one that really actually got put out was a George Michael record called Older from 1996. And fun fact with that one, that is the only record from DreamWorks record that has the boy sitting on the moon fishing logo.
Oh.
Instead, most of the DreamWorks records use a different logo that kind of looks a little more like comic book-ish. And it's got like a little thought cloud with like a music note in the middle of it, and just DreamWorks records underneath it.
Interesting.
So they didn't even try to use the Boy with the Moon on that one. I thought that was kind of surprising that they went with that move so early and only had it for one CD. But they had that with George Michael, of course. But some of the other notable people that joined the label were Nelly Furtado, Power Man 5000, Papa Roach.
Really?
Yep. Chris Rock for like his comedy records.
Okay.
Randy
Nice.
Newman. And then one of the earliest bands that signed with them was a band called Eels. And put out a lot of records in 96.
I wasn't expecting that many higher profile names, like names that I recognize.
Oh, for sure.
From a label that I didn't even know existed until about 5 minutes ago.
Like, I had heard of them, but it never was really familiar. And I mean, I guess there's a good reason why. Because really about 6 or 7 years into being a thing, they were bought by Universal Music Group. Huge conglomerate of music. Which already had David Geffen's label
So they bought his
within
second label.
UMG. Yeah. And was subsequently folded into Geffen by 2004.
They liked his stuff so much they didn't want him to have it himself. They wanted it all for themselves.
Oh, no. No, of course not. Well, I'm sure he made a buttload of money. But, that is what it is.
All these guys have.
Yeah, I'm sure he did, but he's like, I just sold my record label. Let me start this new one. Oh no, I've been bought again. Oh no, woe is me.
I'll just go Scrooge McDuck my money.
Money.
Yeah, heck, distribution through DreamWorks Records wasn't even theirs after 1999. It was really Interscope Records kind of took over that bit. So they didn't have full control over the whole vehicle for more than 4 years, like 3 or 4 years.
But I guess that's like a supply chain thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. But in terms of making the decisions on who is on that label and who gets contracts, that was still their thing. It was just mostly distribution. But yeah, by 2004, all of that was folded into Geffen Records, except for DreamWorks Nashville, which was a subsidiary that was based out in Nashville, with a couple of names which honestly, if I knew country artists, there would probably be some names in there that I would know. Oh, Toby Keith, that's one of them. Was within DreamWorks Nashville.
Hit me up with those country names. That's the only era of country music I know.
Oh, really? Okay, I'm going to give that to you then. Okay, we got Jessica Andrews, Emerson Drive, Toby Keith, Mike Walker, Randy Travis, Jimmy Wayne, Daryl Worley.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all it says for really kind of the synopsis. But by 2006, they were folded into another division of Universal, the Universal Music Group.
Just this massive corporation just sucking up all the music. They want to own all music. That's all I can imagine when someone mentions UMG.
Nom.
A music vacuum, yes.
Yeah.
Yes, a big old music vacuum.
But if it's a vacuum, can you hear the music?
Oh,
fair point.
I don't know.
That'll be our next episode.
Air.
I shall consult Velociraptor for the answer.
A 15-year-old meme. Yes, we will go right for that.
I mean,
it has
that's
to be a
the
sage
era
at
of
this
country
point.
artists you just said about 15 years ago.
Yeah.
You know what? I guess it's yeah. Why not?
Well, you said it sold in 2006. That 15. Yeah, that works.
Yeah.
Math.
But
What's that?
Just as a side note, a meme 15 years old is basically an ancient millennium-old sage in terms of pace of the internet, so.
Yes.
Just to kind of hop back, because, they had the music studio and they had the interactive studios. You mentioned a couple of big names in the music, Kyle, but I didn't realize that the DreamWorks Interactive produced their first big success after the Goosebumps game. Can anybody guess what it was?
I probably saw it when I was looking stuff up, but you can go ahead.
In 99, their first mega hit was the original Medal of Honor for the PlayStation.
Oh, right.
Which was the big competitor to the Call of Duty series.
Like, where did that even come from?
Like, it doesn't make any sense in their DreamWorks Interactive repertoire at all. In 96, you had the Goosebumps Escape from Horrorland was their big game. Looking through 97, they had a game called Chaos Island: The Lost World, another Goosebumps game, Attack of the Mutant, Dilbert's desktop game, and then The Lost World: Jurassic Park. 98, you have the Small Soldiers games, and then in 99, you've got another Jurassic Park game, a game called Boom Bots, and then Medal of Honor. Before they were actually acquired by EA Los Angeles and became Danger Close Games and continued to produce things like Medal of Honor, GoldenEye Rogue Agent, Lord of the Rings Battle for Middle-earth, and Boom Block's Bash Party.
This is an extensive list.
Yeah, and I think what I had read was after, because like we were talking about, this was the Goosebumps game was like the first thing that Interactive did.
Yeah.
And Spielberg like went on set and he was so impressed that he wanted to make a like Jurassic Park game, like you had mentioned.
Yeah.
To coincide with like the release of the second Jurassic Park movie. And then the Small Soldiers. And I think Medal of Honor might have been because I think 99 was when Saving Private Ryan came out. It was around
I believe
then.
so.
So I don't know if that kind of...
I think Saving Private Ryan came out 1997. I might be wrong, but I'm usually pretty good with movie years.
98.
98.
Okay, so yeah, I think it was kind of off of that.
Well, and Small Soldiers kind of had like a Medal of Honor soldier type vibe. Maybe.
Yeah, but wasn't that based around toys? I'm pretty sure it was based
like
around plastic army men.
Toy Story Army.
Yeah, it was like
movie.
Live action Toy Story with CG toys put into live action.
And definitely a higher guidance rating.
Yes.
Yeah, for sure. Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
All I remember from that movie is getting toys from Burger King. That's all.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does seem like a hard pivot to Medal of Honor. But it makes sense that Spielberg would want to do a video game tie-in for Jurassic Park: The Lost World. Tie-in video games were actually a big thing in the 90s, especially like on the Sega Genesis or the Super Nintendo.
Uh-huh.
Like you had television tie-ins. Like there was a Speedy Gonzales game on the Super Nintendo. There were Tom and Jerry games on the
Rugrats.
Genesis.
Just
Rugrats
everything.
games. Everything had an associated video game with it, and they weren't low-grade games. They're actually pretty good.
Some of them, yeah. Especially, I know like the Aladdin game was pretty good. The Lion King game.
Hey, those two games were big. They released them like in the last couple of years on the Switch shop.
Yeah, they re-released them.
Yeah.
Right. It's so weird. Go ahead, Kyle. I'm sorry.
No, that's fine. Do you think that GoldenEye had maybe anything to do with the timeliness of Medal of Honor and some of the games that came out around that time? Just a massive success.
Yeah,
GoldenEye came out before Medal of Honor.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean.
Like inspired it a little.
I think it might have had something to do with it, but the original Medal of Honor wasn't a multiplayer game, which was 007 GoldenEye's big draw.
Oh yeah,
I think looking at the release timing of Medal of Honor and Saving Private Ryan, I think it was more something that is meant to be like a loosely associated game with that film without, having to deal with movie rights and all that. Licensing.
Understandable. But the concept of a first-person shooter, I would imagine was pretty solidified within GoldenEye. So, I mean, I think that's more the thing that I'm focusing on as opposed to the multiplayer. Because, yeah, I remember, that didn't have multiplayer.
First-person shooters were solidified when Doom came out in 92, 93.
That is true.
But I think, it being really accessible. With GoldenEye made it a lot more popular. And then after Halo came out, it was just a
cascade. Yeah,
right.
It was the main.
Hey, this works. Let's do it.
Yeah, like the main competitive game that you went to your friend's house to play. It was either Halo or Time Splitters, or Medal of Honor. We played Medal of Honor on the GameCube quite a lot, and the 007 games. Like again, a lot of movie tie-in stuff was really popular in the late 90s, early 2000s, especially. But getting back to DreamWorks. I have their film list up here, and I have a bit of trivia I want to go over real quick. So, Ants was the first DreamWorks production released on October 2nd of 1998, which that was a heck of a movie to see in theaters. It was not all what I expected it to be.
Yeah, because it came out at the same time as Bug's Life.
It did.
Very, very different, again, suggested viewer age. There was a lot that went over my head being 8 years old watching that, and then hopping over to
radar on that. Yeah.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Yeah. Our grandfather took me to see that film. Just had no idea, and afterwards I had no idea why. It was like, well, that wasn't what I expected. No. I'm 8 years old. I have no idea what's
cartoon,
going on.
This, hot off of Toy Story a couple years before. Like, this is the new thing. Yeah. So,
like, everything in that film went over my head, but he was visibly upset.
It had some deep topics in it.
Oh, for sure. But their next big project, released in 98, was The Prince of Egypt.
Yay!
So, but The Prince of Egypt was, it started production very early on. It started production, it started production in... I had it. I lost it. All right, the idea went into production almost immediately after the founding of DreamWorks in 94. But there is a fairly well-known legend that is apparently true according to Snopes and comic book CBR.com.
Oh, yeah. This is funny.
So, basically, like, The Prince of Egypt was kind of like a big deal film. They're like, this is going to be, a big deal. They were using new animation techniques. And if you've seen Prince of Egypt, it is a gorgeous 2D animated film.
Yes, absolutely phenomenal piece, even if you're not, like, into the Bible stories and all that. Just for an artistic standpoint, it is a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
But the story goes, if you didn't quite make it on The Prince of Egypt, you got sent to the gulag of DreamWorks, which is also known as getting Shreked.
It sounds like a modern term, like very.
It is a modern term. It is a memey term, but like Shrek started production in 95 and apparently started as a 2D film. A lot of these posts point back to a 2010 New York Post article. But, like, Chris Farley was the inspiration for Shrek, but it was...
yeah, he was meant to be the voice of Shrek, but untimely passing.
Yeah, it's this film based on a 30-page children's book by William Steig. It was capped at $20 million by Katzenberg as far as budget. But they were having a lot of issues. The production got started over a number of times. So it had a lot of trouble, and it had a reason for its reputation as the gulag of DreamWorks. But it's so ironic to me that, like, it was considered this
punishment.
Again, massive punishment. Again, the gulag of DreamWorks. That's not a term you should be using lightly. And then if you talk about DreamWorks, Shrek is like the first film people think of. For the most part, it was like a much more culturally significant film.
Right, yeah, especially as far as DreamWorks kind of like brought them out into the spotlight, I would say.
Yeah.
I mean, Heck, they used the theme from Shrek for, years and years and years. Anytime that like a DreamWorks film would open, and they still to this day, some of the openers are based upon the Shrek theme.
Yeah, it's an absurd, sometimes crude film, but it was different. It used 3D animation, and it did it pretty darn well especially for the 2001 release it saw. And it's just, that's the fact that it was considered a punishment to work on Shrek, and that getting Shreked was a term before it became a term on the internet for getting, just absolutely destroyed in a video game. It's gave me a bit of a chuckle.
Yeah. Jake, I don't know if you remember this, Jake, but we actually saw that in theaters on the way down to our vacation destination. Yeah. I think we were going to like Tybee Island that year, and we had stopped somewhere in Georgia, and we saw this at a movie theater in Georgia.
Yeah, it was like in Savannah, I think.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, which I thought was funny.
Yeah, really weird to be a first time to see Shrek.
But yeah, like I would say today, like if you ask a kid, what Shrek is, like of course you ask him what Prince of Egypt is, like what?
Yeah,
I mean, yeah, like I think people our age do, but I think it's definitely
a more memorable piece than
more viral, spread across.
Yeah, it's kind of funny. You think like you're doing a great job on development, Prince of Egypt. Boss comes up, says, "Yeah, you're not really pulling your weight. We're gonna toss you over here to this swamp." And let my people go. You're gonna go over here and work on this project. Right. And like you're already in trouble, so you just kind of say screw it and do whatever, and your work really shines because Shrek pushed a lot of boundaries, but they did it well.
Do you think there was a particular set of a sense of pride in being in the swamp?
Maybe.
I'm not sure because like I again, like all of
they're all all-stars.
All the references I'm seeing for this point back to this New York Post article. Like everything, when you search up this whole concept of getting Shreked, CBR calls it a movie urban legend. But like again, it and Snopes show it as being apparently true. There's like nothing to refute it, but I haven't seen any first-hand accounts. So take it with a grain of salt. But like DreamWorks went from Shrek to having a bunch of major successful properties. We had, obviously the Shrek series, the Madagascar movies, Over the Hedge, B-Movie, Kung Fu Panda, How to Train Your Dragon, Megamind. Like, it became a household name because of Shrek. And if you ask anybody, like, what's your, like, who made The Prince of Egypt? I doubt a lot of people who've seen it would be able to tell you. Same with The Road to El Dorado or Chicken Run. I forgot DreamWorks made Chicken Run.
Oh, right.
I mean, and both of those are good movies. They're not, they're not bad at all.
Better than Shark Tale.
Yeah, no.
Wow, which is, another kind of Ants and Bugs Life. It was like Shark Tale and Finding Nemo.
Everything fish.
I can't remember what the name for that is. Where two movies come out at the same time that are like basically the same thing, but
oh jeez,
close competitors.
Yeah,
Finding Nemo and Shark Tale.
We'll look it up.
You have to wonder if those are intentional too.
Hey, we got wind. They're making a fish movie. We're gonna make another fish movie. We're gonna make it better.
Right. It happens so many times though over the course of
movie history. Yeah,
DreamWorks and Pixar, or DreamWorks and Disney Animation Studios.
Not that DreamWorks didn't. Yeah, not that DreamWorks didn't have its imitators too. I remember seeing imitators off of the what's probably going to be next on your list, like the Madagascar series.
Yeah.
Oh, the Wild or whatever. Is that what
it's called? Something like that.
Yeah. Again, back to the cultural significance of Shrek. Like, I think if you talk to a lot of teenagers, they would know what Shrek is. I think over a certain age, most kids are gonna know what Shrek is, and not a single one of you, one of them would say they knew what they'd seen The Prince of Egypt or The Road to El Dorado or anything like that. Like, Shrek was a phenomenon. It was like the big film of the year that year.
Yeah, and I would say, it's a pretty big franchise because there's 4 movies, and then there's like some
sequels. There's a musical, which is actually pretty good.
Yeah, and then there's the spin-off, like with Puss in Boots, and there's like TV specials for like Halloween, I think.
I think there's a Christmas one as well. Yeah. Like, they are milking Shrek for all he's worth.
Right. It ain't going away anytime soon. Oh, when did that 4th movie come out? Shrek Forever After.
I'm not actually seeing it on the list of DreamWorks animation productions.
Let me look it up.
It might have been another branch of Paramount that handled it, actually. But I will second that the Shrek musical was really, really well done.
I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, hard recommend.
Definitely recommend that one.
Yeah, because it only says you have Shrek the Third is... Okay, no, Shrek Forever After was 2010. And it was distributed by and co-produced by Paramount.
Yeah, this is a production company, DreamWorks Animation. So this has something to do with it, at least.
So the first Shrek was what year?
2001.
So in 9 years, they came out with 4 3D animated Shrek movies. Like, that's pretty quick for the technology they had.
Oh, yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure, like, the success of Shrek just dwarfed anything they made before. Like, it made over twice what The Prince of Egypt made in its, gross theater. Like, it blew that out of the water. Heck, Chicken Run was more successful than The Prince of Egypt, as far as commercial gross ticket sales.
I mean, that might have had to do with, the success of things like Wallace and Gromit, because that was all Aardman animation, was it not?
Yeah, it was like a partnership with them. I believe people did Wallace and Gromit.
Yeah, and like the first one that DreamWorks had a hand in was Curse of the Were-Rabbit in 2005.
Oh, yeah.
But yeah, like, if you look at the early years, like, so Shrek's sequel, Shrek 2, came out in 2004, and it almost doubled the worldwide gross of the original Shrek at $920 million. Wow. So, like, you can easily see where, like, they had that cash inflow, and they're like, okay, we're going to get more talent, we're going to keep going.
Yeah.
Like, that probably fueled
pause these other projects, and Shrek is life.
Or at least that's your, like, cash cow, yeah, but you can then branch out to other stuff, like you said, Madagascar. And
yeah, they released Shrek Spirit, Stallion of the... How do you say
Cimarron.
That? Cimarron, thank you. Sinbad, then Shrek 2, and then between Shrek 2 and Shrek the Third, they had Shark Tale, Madagascar, Curse of the Were-Rabbit, Over the Hedge, Flushed Away.
We'll say most of those I've seen and were pretty good. Some of those I've never heard of.
From what I've heard that Sinbad is kind of the one that DreamWorks would rather forget. In fact, really? When Katzenberg was interviewed one time about, some things going back into the history of DreamWorks and maybe some of the missteps in terms of going away from 2D animation, he actually skipped over Sinbad as the last 2D animated movie that they had done. They instead referenced the one from 2002, that Spirit, Stallion, the Cimarron.
I thought that Sinbad was pretty fun for the time. I mean, they casted it pretty well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, from what I understand, it was really not all that bad. It just did not do well at the box office at all. It's as if, like, no one had heard of it, so no one went and saw it.
Yeah, it's...
That was one of my favorites as a kid.
It is the second lowest grossing film that DreamWorks has ever produced. The only one that was lower was actually Road to El Dorado.
Really?
And that one was good too.
That one was awesome. It's one of my favorite GIF memes. To the both responses, my favorite.
Yeah.
I mean, that had to have been a direct response to just the advent of 3D animation. It just, I don't think anyone was looking for 2D animation anymore. It was already on its way out the door.
Like, outside of DreamWorks, like, Disney had Atlantis, and then Treasure Planet, and then Princess and the Frog, and then they just stopped doing 2D feature films.
Yep, there was one more in 2013. They did. It was like it was a Winnie the Pooh movie. That was the very last one that Walt Disney Animation did. That was solely 2D. After that, studio was shut, and it was never seen from again.
And I'm pretty sure that like Atlantis and Treasure Planet, which I love those films, were also considered commercial failures. I don't think it had anything to do with the quality of the film so much as public interest.
Absolutely. And Princess and the Frog and the Winnie the Pooh feature, those were both flops as well.
Which is unfortunate, because Princess and the Frog was amazing.
By far one of their best movies.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fun how a reference to a game we played as a kid turned into, like, what the heck was Dreamworks even doing? They just had their hands in so many places. At least the main venture panned out, you know?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
No, I mean, because I think, obviously, like, you can do direct comparison between, like, Pixar and DreamWorks. And, like, early on, Pixar just did, like, a lot of, like, short films, and, like, they would help other movies, like, with their 3D effects. And so, I feel like DreamWorks starting off, like, we want to do, like, these 3D movies, but in the meantime, we got to make money doing all these other projects. And so this whole thing, when I thought about, like, I forgot, or I didn't even know it was a DreamWorks game, and then finding out it was, like, one of the first projects DreamWorks worked on. It's just funny to drop, like, a direct line from this to Shrek.
And then to modern day, yeah.
Yeah, and because still, like, the Trolls franchise is, like, their biggest one now.
Yeah.
For DreamWorks.
If you look at it, though, like, the Goosebumps game probably did bankroll Shrek and Prince of Egypt. Like, it was a joint venture, but money flows to the parent company, and DreamWorks SKG was the parent company of DreamWorks Interactive.
Gosh, just nuts.
So if that game hadn't been as successful as it was, as mild as that success may have been, like, we might not have gotten Shrek.
Right.
Also, the other pillars of DreamWorks, if those weren't nearly as successful, that it would have immediately just sent the whole thing to a screeching halt. But Interactive Division was a nice place to get a feel for, hopping into animation years later.
Yeah.
And that's a thought that will leave you with goosebumps.
Final note on DreamWorks Interactive. I mentioned they were acquired by Electronics Arts, became Danger Close Games, which was shuttered in January 2013. So a lot of those developers, after Danger Close was effectively closed, moved to DICE LA, which is a sub-studio of EA's DICE, which now makes, the Battlefield and Star Wars Battlefront games. So, imagine being any of developer that was around at the beginning. I started working on Goosebumps, and now I make a Star Wars first-person shooter. Like, what a career that has to be.
Moving on up.
Right.
What a ride.
What a wild ride.
Oh, gosh.
But not Mr. Bones' wild ride.
Yes.
No, which appropriately should be in Horrorland.
Yeah.
Yes, it should.
Yes, give me the version of Roller Coaster Tycoon that has purchasable Goosebumps attractions to put in my theme park. Yes, please.
Yeah.
It's
just
like a no-brainer.
No dummy. Oh, no brains, yeah.
No dummies.
No bones.
No dummies.
Something else, going back to that Goosebumps thing again, the passphrase, "the Scarecrow walks at midnight," there's actually a book from Goosebumps that is just "the Scarecrow walks at midnight" that I wasn't even aware of until, again, like, earlier this week when we started looking this stuff up.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even know that. That's
funny. I just know that there were, like, 100-something Goosebumps books from stocking them at our family's bookstore, but for whatever reason, I was too scared to read them as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
But, there's a lot of them.
Yes.
Yeah, there are. There's so many. I've read a lot of them.
Definite staple of the book fairs.
Oh, yeah.
During the 90s, yeah.
Yeah.
At the end of putting that passphrase in, the scarecrow walks at midnight, did any of you guys click the pumpkins afterward to see what they would say after you solved it? Because from something I heard,
save it for the stream.
Yeah, they say the scarecrow walks at midnight in different ways, but
they have conversation about it. I'm pretty sure. I didn't mess around with that when I was testing it in the earlier, so. Yeah, we will be
it in the earlier.
We will be streaming that game just for our own entertainment, mostly, but also just to maybe get some long play YouTube content. We'll be streaming that on Twitch, twitch.tv/WeMightBeNerds. I think we're talking about targeting Thursday.
Hopefully,
yeah. So it'll probably be later, probably around 10 p.m. Central, because we tend to do things late night. But.
And if you miss it, you can always watch the VOD afterwards.
Yeah, so if you're on Twitch, give us a follow, twitch.tv/WeMightBeNerds. And you'll get a notification when we go live with that.
Didn't you guys only have one of the discs of this this burnt Goosebumps game?
That was the scariest part about that horror game.
No, disc 2! Where is it?
Finally, we can complete the saga.
Wasn't it right after the end of like a very intense FMV sequence of like falling down a pit or something?
Yeah,
I think there were multiple points where it could happen.
Right, yeah, because it wasn't exactly linear, so yeah, there was different points where you could proceed to a new area, and then it's like, please insert this too, and
no.
Well, that's it. I'll never know how it ends.
That's all, folks.
That's all, folks.
Alright. Go ahead, Kyle.
I do have some specific memories of when you guys played the game. I remember we had a large family gathering at my parents' house during Super Bowl 34. That was when the Rams were playing the Titans, the one that where the Titans lost by a yard. And I remember you guys playing that on the computer during the Super Bowl.
I believe it.
All I can remember. So, I mean, yeah, late 90s, 98, 99, that absolutely tracks because, I mean, it was what? End of January, beginning of February of 2000, something like that Super Bowl took place.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
So, yeah, that would certainly confirm it for me.
Yep. All right. So, if we want to move away from Dreamworks, I have something that, Kyle, I think you're aware of. I don't know if Jake and Sarah have heard of this before, though. This is a fairly recent story. Was published by Did You Know Gaming on YouTube about an accessory for the Game Boy that was slated for early 90s release. I'm going to send you guys a link in chat here. But this started getting shopped around in 1992. It's called the Work Boy. And it was basically a keyboard attachment and cartridge that would transform your old black and white Game Boy into what would later be known as like a PDA.
Oh gosh.
Huh.
Yeah, I did not know about this.
That's cute.
It's upsetting.
There was only one prototype, which the guy who ran the company who produced it sent to the guy investigating it from Did You Know Gaming, and because of the breach of Nintendo that happened earlier in the 2010s at some point and was dumped last year called GigaLeak, there was a ROM of the software. So he was actually able to show off the functionality of this thing. It had stuff like a checkbook ledger, world maps, times, a multilingual dictionary. So it had like 7 or 8 different languages programmed into it. It's just 92. They were showing this off at the Consumer Electronics Show. It would have retailed for $79 to $89 US.
Wow. And yeah, like you sent this article, the picture of the keyboard, it's like maybe 2 times the width of the Game Boy, which does not look very large.
No, it's not big at all. And it's got this little stand for the Game Boy that was supposed to come with
Well,
too.
that's the original brick Game Boy. It was pretty hefty. It was a really large Game Boy.
Yeah, it was a lot bigger than the Pocket. It was about 1.5 times size of the Pocket.
But still, yeah, the keyboard does look pretty tiny.
Yeah.
But it looks like it's smaller than like a ZX, like the Sinclair ZX
Spectrum.
The Spectrum, yeah.
Yeah.
But somewhat similar.
It is somewhat similar. I'm skipping through the video here because, yeah, it had a phone book built into it.
That would have been a really cool thing to have, like, as a kid. Imagine going to economics class and already knowing how to balance a checkbook because you learned on your Game Boy. How cool would that be?
Work Boy. Oh, it's the
My Work
saddest
Boy,
thing
yeah.
I can
I'm
think
not
of.
sure that's school approved.
The target market for this was like, because the Game Boy was a very expensive device, so this was something to where the parents of the house could have a use for it. So the applications that I'm seeing here, there's a phone book, like a calendar, like appointments, a calculator, a English to German or English to French or French to English dictionary just built into it, into a Game Boy cartridge of all things. Like,
that's pretty cool.
There wasn't a lot of space on these things. There was a measurement conversion system, inches to centimeters, feet to meters, yards to meters, acres to hectares, fluid ounces to liters. Like, just so much functionality built into this thing that would later become something that you'd expect in like a Palm Pilot.
Right.
And those were fairly pricey when they were new. Especially when you got to like Blackberries and all those other PDAs.
Yeah, it had a little... Go ahead.
No, yeah, those were definitely expensive, and yeah, this was you said $89 on top of the cost of the
Game Boy, which
yeah.
is about the same cost as the Game Boy.
Yeah,
but it's just this neat little thing that had, again, like it had a bit of word processing functionality, just like stuff that we have apps for on our phones now. That obviously, a lot of that came from like the Palm Pilot. It's a very interesting little device that finally got demoed as recently as I think it was 27th December. It got posted to 26th December. I'm sorry, to YouTube. So I'm gonna have a link to that in the show notes if you want to see a piece of what could have been. So I can't even imagine having something like this, like, in the home at that time. It's like, this is the same sort of functionality a lot of people used a home PC for in the 90s, right?
Yeah, except on, like, a screen that was, like, 160 pixels by 144. I just looked it up.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, and I thought
it's definitely space-saving compared to the desktop, because those monitors were massive.
Right.
Yeah, a definite space saver.
From what I remember, there was only 2 of these things that were actually made, right?
Correct. The guy from Did You Know Gaming that did the reporting, I believe, lives in the UK, and the CEO of the company that produced the Workboy, which I should be able to find here. Source Research, Fabtech Incorporated. The person who had been the founder and CEO sent him the only prototype he had to test it.
That's crazy.
It's just absolutely mind-boggling.
I mean, that is a pretty fab piece of tech.
Yeah.
It was the demo. Yeah, I mean, you got to see it for yourself. The demo's pretty good, very thorough.
Yeah, the multi-language dictionary to me was like the most impressive part, because it just had a list of words and it would list it in multiple languages, just on the screen if you'd select that word. I mean,
come on, it's pretty cool.
Heck, I don't even have I don't even know of any apps that are just, I can search a term and
Other than like Google Translate.
Yeah, Google Translate.
Go-to.
But like, sans an internet connection,
Mm-hmm.
like just built into it, and in such a small space.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I could see this having been commercially viable, but it had a bunch of issues with development and then marketing and pricing. The thing that was really the nail in the coffin is when Nintendo dropped the price of the Game Boy to the point where this device would have been more expensive than the Game Boy itself. And it just became a commercial non-starter.
Right. Yeah, dang, that is weird.
This is the kind of stuff that, like, I look back and it's like, what could have been had this hit the market?
I know.
Like, can you imagine, like, how many more adults would have been into the Game Boy? Because the Game Boy was marketed at kids, but, like, for parents to have a use for the Game Boy would have been pretty darn cool, and probably would have actually increased the sales even more, higher than they already were.
Probably.
I mean, what kid is going to want to share their Game Boy with their parents? They probably would have just bought a second Game
Gosh,
Boy.
Mom, it's no longer cool because now you want to play the Game Boy.
It's like, it's my Game Boy.
Get your own.
Yeah, it definitely would have been interesting if you could, like, use this and, like, unplug the keyboard and plug in, like, the Game Boy printer that came out. I think prof little Word documents.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's on little ticker tape.
Yeah, the Game Boy had a lot of weird
scrolls.
accessories, like the camera, the Game Boy camera.
Yeah, that thing did work with the printer, did it not?
Yeah, it did.
But this was the keyboard for the Work Boy uses the only communications port on the Game Boy. So the keyboard, there would have had to be a hub of some sort for that to work. That would be cool, though.
Would have thought that there would be like a pass-through, but I guess, everything's got to have a dongle now.
I mean, I guess you would unplug it and then go with the D-pad and the A and B button to just go to print. But yeah, anyways.
Let's play in some alt history space for a minute. Imagining this thing would have been commercially successful. Do you think, like you mentioned with the ticker tape little printer that the Game Boy had with it, do you think it's possible we would have seen these miniaturized sales terminals a little bit faster, a higher degree of focus into small electronics for transactional purposes, smaller computing?
Absolutely. Definitely would have seen more possibilities for small handheld computing earlier on, I think.
Yeah, Japan had a number of sub-laptop sized PCs that we never got here in the States, notably the IBM PC 110, which is basically the size of a Nintendo DS, but it was a full Pentium laptop that was palm size. It was called a Palm Top, was the form factor name. But we never saw anything like that in the US. And again, just to drive home the fact of how expensive the Work Boy was, $89 in 1991 is equivalent to about $170 today. So you're looking at $350 for the Game Boy plus Work Boy solution.
Which is about the price of the BlackBerry when they came out. It was about the $350-ish mark.
Yeah. How much did Apple want for their Newton? Because that would have been right around the same time, 93, 94.
Apple Newton.
I actually got to play with one of those recently. It was really cool.
Oh yeah, I recognize this thing. How much did you release for? So the Newton was an early monochrome PDA, released March 8th, 93. It's the iPhone 2G is considered its successor rather. So the original iPhone, it wasn't discontinued to 98, so it had a pretty good commercial run.
That's a good lifespan for a piece of tech.
Yeah, especially during the 90s when things were really starting to ramp up. I'm not seeing prices. Control F price. It says high price was part of its problem, so part of the problem with selling it was its price.
Yeah, I guarantee you it was not $89.
It was $700 in 1993.
Oh boy.
Like over $1,000.
That's, let me go down to the bank and get a loan for this handheld computer.
It was a very functional device for its time, though. It was cool to get to use one of those.
Yeah, let's see. The conversion, that would have been $1,267 in today's money.
Yeah, get yourself a nice computer. Or
get yourself a nice laptop, yeah.
Yeah.
God.
Yeah, that is a lot.
But did it come with a see-through casing so you could watch all of the stuff working, as was the aesthetic of the 90s?
RGB lighting. Nowadays, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh gosh, those telephones. All those
the telephones, the Game Boy Pockets,
radios.
Yes, everything had to be clear cased.
Yeah,
and all the inner workings were brightly colored.
Yep, the 90s were a hell of a time.
They did have to make they had to make a clear cased TV for prison use. So there's that one as well.
Prison technology is very interesting because of the you have to have the see-through aspect of it. Techbone does a great video on that I'll put in the show notes. But like, because a lot of it's 90s tech. Like, no, the 90s were a wild time, and like I could see the Workboy having been successful in the landscape of, you know, the existence of the car phone and the early big bulky cell phones, and it would have been such a portable device compared to what was available at that price point. Mm-hmm. Well, nothing could have competed with it at that price point had it actually been released.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Slap a modem on that baby and you got yourself a winner.
Yeah, for real.
Yeah.
Just make an adapter and a dongle.
Yeah, you need a power adapter too for the...
and a dongle for that dongle.
Yeah. You know, keep feeding batteries into that while you're trying to work
Heard
on
you
it.
like dongles.
Hey, hold on, Jake. We're not talking about the Game Gear here.
I know. Well,
the Game Boy didn't eat batteries like that.
That's true.
Yeah.
I still went through my fair share of AA's with my Game Boy.
Right. Same here.
Especially Game Boy Color.
Speaking of weird accessories, like the Game Boy had, the Workboy was obviously something that didn't make it to market, but it had the lights and the screen magnifier and the printer and the camera and all that. But Sega's competitor, the Game Gear, with its full-color miniature CRT built into it, had a full friggin' TV tuner attachment come out for it.
Oh.
Yeah, it was the Sega Game Gear TV tuner. It had a little antenna and a UHF VHF dial on top of it. I wanted one so bad, never got it.
Mm. That active matrix display, though, was rough, dude.
Oh, yeah, it was bad.
Have you seen any of the videos on YouTube where they replace that screen with something a little more modern, and it makes a humongous difference?
No.
They did that for the Game Gear and the Atari Lynx. And I've seen a lot of videos between both of those on trying to see just how good the games actually would have looked if there was a better screen in it. But, you know, the technology just wasn't there.
Well, for the Game Gear, you had an easy answer. Look at the Sega Master System, because all the Game Gear was a miniaturized Master System.
Yeah, that's very true.
But like with the full-color screen, part of me wonders why FabTech wasn't working on it for the Game Gear instead, since it was a much more capable device, although I guess not as popular. Popularity and adoption rate probably had a lot to do with that. I'm not sure how the Game Gear sold, if I'm being honest.
Like, a lot of Game Boys were already in homes.
That's fair.
So that could have been a big selling point that, hey, you already have this thing. Why not make it more functional?
Yeah, I can see that.
Yeah, that is very interesting.
I would have loved it. But I'm a nerd. I like that. If it could do spreadsheets, I would have been sold.
It had a database application, but I'm pretty sure that was just the checkbook ledger. It's been a while since I watched this video.
Okay. But yeah, that's kind of something related to spreadsheet. Yeah. Wow. I wonder how hard it'd be hard to work on that thing.
I mean, the screenshots like I'm seeing are pretty good. Like it had enough pixel density to show a full calculator on screen for the calculator app, and then a couple of rows of input before the answer on the calculator itself. So I mean, it had enough to work with.
Yeah.
I mean, if you think about it, a lot of those early Palm Pilots didn't have a lot of screen real estate, and you were scrolling to see most of what you were working on.
That's true.
The Game Boy did have screen real estate.
Yeah.
That's very true. They were all extremely low resolution, and like a lot of them were like using resistive touchscreens and were very unwieldy, where a button-driven interface would have been advantageous, I think.
Especially if you're already really good with the D-pad and the A and B buttons.
Yeah, picking up that...
From your Legend of Zelda, Link's Awakening, and your Batman, Gotham City games.
And Tetris.
Whatever. Yes, Tetris.
That keyboard doesn't look uncomfortable at all.
No. Definitely looks like it could have been a very viable thing.
My mind reels at what could have been possible in terms of like mobile computing had something like this become successful.
Yeah, especially if Nintendo was part of like driving that technology.
Oh yeah, they were partnered for.
Yeah.
Out of the 2 prototypes that exist, one was owned by a Fabtech CEO. The other one is in the Nintendo Vault.
Wow, that's interesting.
Yeah, one's a lot more accessible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It pains me that it wasn't successful because, honestly, I just want the Palm top form factor computers. I would have loved for those to be a thing. There are a couple niche products like the Open Pandora and like the GP D-Win, but they're so expensive. Like, I would have loved to see those be commoditized. That's just kind of the thing I like.
Well, when time travel's a thing, we'll go back and say, hey, you're really onto something with this thing. Please push it harder.
Butterfly effect, butterfly effect, butterfly effect.
Yeah.
We're gonna change the world one Nintendo device at a time.
Change the world, my final message.
See, the thing is, like, what kind of time travel theory are we working in? Are we talking about single consolidated timeline that has, like, immediate ramifications, or are we talking multiverse theory?
Absolutely multiverse, because you can't undo what's already there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The Game Boy multiverse.
Nintendoverse.
Oh, God. Speaking of multiverse, no, I'm not going to go on that segue.
Try me.
Multiverse of Madness, MCU. I'm not. Do we have anything else, or do we want to wrap it up?
Well, I don't know. I think that's good for this week. I was looking up stuff about Goosebumps, really, is all I had this week, so.
Yeah, we all kind of dove in on the Goosebumps Dreamworks train.
But if it's, a little shorter this week, and people can go over and watch the Twitch stream, where we all yell at, I guess, assumedly Dylan about what he should be doing in the game, that'll be fun.
Yeah. It's probably going to be me driving the game and the other 3 of you just shouting at me, do this, do that, and eventually an emotional breakdown.
Go back to the pumpkins. That's my favorite part.
Or, why did it take you that long to figure that puzzle out? That was easy.
Yeah.
One of you will have to take notes for me.
Who's got the clearest handwriting? Not me.
Not me.
No, it's Sarah. It's Sarah.
It's
see you guys' handwriting. Sarah kicks your butts.
Okay, are we talking about the architectural drafting or my actual handwriting?
I'm talking your actual handwriting.
Because my actual handwriting is garbage. I can't write. That's not architectural.
It's more legible than
anymore.
Jake and Kyle's, I promise.
Well, you just have to get a hold of one of those keyboards and Game Boys and just type
notes
on that.
I need that for my
that tiny little
stenography of our game session.
Yeah.
No.
So yeah, we will have that, and the once we finish that stream, we will publish it to YouTube and post it on our social media channels. So yeah, kind of a shorter one this time around, but we will be back, of course, in 2 weeks with yet another episode. So thank you so much for joining us on our podcast. We appreciate you taking the time to listen to us ramble on about weird facts we discovered as we were researching a game we played as a kid.
Or weird things we lived through.
Yeah.
Or things we just have a distant memory of.
Or keyboards I never had.
The keyboards to all the keyboards I never owned.
All those keyboards.
Disc 2, no!
You can find us
2 is the keyboard.
You can find us on social media at Might Be Nerds Pod on Twitter and Facebook. You can find us on We Might Be Nerds at YouTube and now on Twitch. Or if you want to send us an email, give us some feedback, you can reach us at wemightbenerds@gmail.com. All the links to the videos and articles that we discussed in this episode will be up on wemightbenerds.com as of the release of this episode. And a quick side note, / errata, I had compiled the show notes for the last episode to coincide with the episode release and never ended up hitting the publish button. So show notes for episode 11 are now up. I'm sorry.
Whoops.
Episode 11, That's Not My Soup. Those are now
notes.
available.
That's not my soup, and this is not my keyboard.
No.
No keyboard.
But it's my life.
But that's going to do it for us this time. Thanks for joining us. I'm Dylan Critchfield.
I'm Kyle Montgomery.
I'm Sarah Critchfield.
And Jacob Montgomery.
Thank you for listening to We Might Be Nerds. We'll see you next time.
If you enjoyed this episode,
you might be a nerd too.
Keyboard.
Disc 2.
CDs.